have to spend much time with me talking about Vinnie and the Hitmen to know how passionate I am about it and how I am going to do everything in my power to make it, a success. And by success, I don't mean money. I don't mean records. I don't mean recordings. I don't mean Facebook followers or Instagram followers. I mean standing in front of a group of people and touching one person in the crowd, touching their soul in a way that makes them understand everything I wanted to do is possible. That's what I want to do. One, and if we're in front of 300 or 3,000 and we get one, job's done. Move on to the next crowd. You know what I mean?
This episode contains adult language and adult humor.
Since when have trumpet players ever been considered adults?
If you are easily offended by these types of conversations, consider switching to the oboe. Welcome to the Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. My guest for this episode is Vinnie Ciesielski. Vinnie, well, he's returning for a second round here at the Hang to discuss his new project, Vinnie and The Hitmen, a 15-piece horn-driven band that features some of Nashville's heaviest hitters. But Vinnie's vision of the Hitmen is not just about knockout performances. It's also about touching the lives of young musicians to show them that anything is possible when you have enough passion and are willing to put in the work that it takes to go be awesome. So, pour yourself a big glass, pull up a chair, and let the hang begin. All right, and welcome to a special edition of the Trumpet Gurus Hang. I am joined for the second time, yes, two times. He is a repeat offender by my brother from another mother, the one and only Vinnie Ciesielski. Vinnie, welcome back to the show, my bud.
And thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate you squeezing me in, man. I really do. It's awesome.
Oh man, Vinnie, I'm your number one fan. Well, maybe not, but I'm definitely in the top 10 percentile of the fans of Vinnie. And man, you've got so much stuff going on, and I just want to hop right into it, man, because this is a big one, folks. Vinnie and the Hitmen have got some product coming your way. So let's talk about what's been going on with that and what people can expect and how they can get it and, all that good stuff.
Well, thank you so much, Jose. I appreciate it, man. And Vinnie and the Hitmen was we had our first rehearsal, man, in mid-December last year on a Sunday afternoon, and I'll never forget it. It was a whole bunch of people that I really love, and a really cool band. We came together. We had 6 charts, and we played through a couple of them, and people were like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." It was loud, man. We were in the Union rehearsal hall, and it's like, the trumpets are facing the trombones, who are facing the saxes, and then the guitars and all that stuff. And it's like, with 9 horns, it's not. Well, subtlety has always been wasted on me and my playing, so you can imagine what it sounds like. But I went into this diatribe about what my vision for the band was, man, and I said things like, we're gonna record 6 tunes, and we're gonna release shorts and half lengths and full lengths on all the social media platforms, and I want that to be done by August. And by August, we had done them. That we still got one to go. The other thing I said was I want to play. The whole point of the band, man, is education. It really is. I mean, you and I are perfect examples of this. I've been in Nashville since '92. And I have made a good living as a full-time musician playing commercial music. And now that could be commercial, what I call commercial classical, which is not like what the Nashville Symphony does when they do Mahler 3 or Mahler 5 or any of the Mahlers. But it is, it's that quasi-classical that they do in a lot of recording and all that kind of stuff. And I've played rock and roll and pop and R&B and soul and gospel. And, I can count the number of big band jazz records that I've played on, although I have played on some really, really super cool ones. But I want the kids that are coming through school now, what I've noticed is I think the teachers are doing a great job. I think classical music is absolutely the most important foundational tool that you can use as a musician, as a trumpet player or trombone or saxophone woodwind player. And I think those skills translate over into jazz, because then you start to come up with ideas, and you have to have the facility and the technical ability and the flexibility to play jazz. Okay. And then I think those two skills together combine to make you a great commercial player. So, you know, um, I feel like if you're coming out of school now and you don't know September, Uptown Funk, maybe Mustang Sally, all of the Temptation songs, any Motown, Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, maybe a little Blood, Sweat and Tears, all of that would widely be considered right down the throat of commercial music. And so we want to present Vinnie and the Hitman with 9 horns and a big rhythm section as a familiar setup. So, hey, that looks like my high school stage band, or that looks like my college jazz band, or whatever the deal is, or it looks like the front line of the Pittsburgh Steelers, or the Tennessee Titans. Um, and then when we come out playing, Billie Eilish or Justin Timberlake, or another tune like that, then we're able to capture their attention, because it's something that looks familiar, but it sounds completely different. So it's all instrumental, rock and roll, R&B. And so another thing that I talked about in that first meeting was, we're going to do a public domain Christmas record. And they're like, well, why would you want to do public domain? There's so many great tunes. And I said, because we get to keep all the money. The public domain stuff, for those that most everybody knows, but for public domain stuff, when you do an arrangement, then you own that arrangement and you make all of the money. There's no record company, there's no publishing company, there's no BMI, there's no ASCAP, there's none of that stuff. You create that stuff. And so if we sell a record for $10, we keep $10, which, as far as record deals go, is just unheard of. So I sat down with Jerry Goldenson at KHS. KHS is Mapex, Sonar, Majestic, Altus flutes, Hohner. They bought Hohner. They also do EXO instruments and Jupiter instruments. So they're really big in the band and orchestra world. And they're here in Middle Tennessee. Jerry and I have known each other for 10 years, and we've been trying to come up with an opportunity to work together. I sit down with Jerry and I said, Jerry, here's the deal. I don't want to be a non-prof. I'm out of money. I've thrown, all of our savings at this thing. And I just, we're looking for some help, not necessarily from you, but, you're smart guys. And we sat there for 2 or 3 hours, man, in his office. He's just a really giving guy. And he says, man, I like the idea of this Christmas record, and I'd like to help you with it. And I said, okay. He said, I've got a buddy, Joe West, at West Barn, Gasoline Inc. Studios. And let me set it up. I'll take care of it. And I said, when you say take care of it, what do you mean? And he said, don't you worry. I know a guy, and he's like that, he's kind of a big bald guy, and he's like, hey, he fell off a truck, that kind of guy, and so it started to come together, man. And so 2 weeks ago, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we did 3 days of live recording at West Barn Studios in Franklin, Tennessee. All 14 of us, plus a 5 or 6 man video crew, plus Joe and 3 assistant engineers, and all of the staff and all from KHS, and we made a record. But what I want to do was, I told my arrangers, John Hinchy, who is a evil genius minus the evil, one of the best humans I know, and a longtime friend. I've known him since 1985. I said, I want these tunes to sound like when you hear this, it sounds like something, but it's a Christmas tune. And I want that to emphasize the fact that, you don't have to go, we 3 kings of Orient. You can turn that into a really cool tune, which a lot of people have done. And it's right up his alley, because he's got a very dry, sort of a dad, punny sense of humor. So all of his arrangements have quotes from like TV shows in them, and they cross over genres. and they swing for just a little while, just long enough to be like, we don't swing, and then it goes right back into rock and roll. And I mean, it's just really incredible. And he's been doing it forever. He worked for King's Productions um, in the 80s, and he does, the amusement park thing, he does the cruise ship thing, he does, he was writing shows, Broadway stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then we have another arranger, Scott Hearn, who's a young guy, just got out of the Marines a couple of years ago, Semper Fi and ooh-ah and all that good stuff. He's a bass trombone player, and I said, you want to write some songs? And he said, yeah, sure. I said, well, I need him by October 15th. And he said, no problem. This is about maybe 6 weeks ahead of time. And we start to get up to the deadline, and he's like, when do we need these? And it's the first time he's ever had anything recorded, and the same sensibility. He took these beautiful songs, and he picked some of the ones that are a little bit more, a little less known, and turned them into these. One of them is, let me see if I can find a list here. We did one of them as if Led Zeppelin were playing with horns. That's one. We did another song in the style of the Blues Brothers, Rawhide. Literally, just like we play both kinds of music, country and Western, and it's hysterical, complete with the horse whinny and the whole 9 yards. We did, what was that? Chariots of Fire. Remember Chariots of Fire from the mid '80s?
Yeah.
We did "O Come Emmanuel," I think, in the style of Chariots of Fire, complete with the. I mean, it's hysterically, like, when you listen, you're like, what's going on here? And then we come in with the melody, and there's some great solos. The ensemble playing is just scary. And we did 10 songs. They're all about 3.5 minutes long. We did 10 songs in 4 sessions. So two 6 or 7 hour days. The entire thing was videotaped. And so basically what KHS is doing is they're going to use it on their site to, because I played an XO, and all the trombone players were playing. Hercules stands came out, and they had all the stands and the mic stands and music stands and all that stuff. And Royer Labs, who, if you ask our friend Michael Barkley about, they're just kind of the royalty of the ribbon world. They're a boutique company, but Gary Grant, Jerry Hay, Reichenbach, Wayno, they all have been recording on Royer 121 for years and years and years. And so John Jennings, the vice president, fell in love with the band. Just like I introduced myself through a customer service issue with Royer, the vice president steps in and says, this is taking way too long. I'm going to replace your part for free out of my own collection, and I'll worry about the rest of this stuff later. I mean, it was unbelievable. This is the vice president of a fairly large company. And I told him about the band. He said, I'd love to hear the band. And he was at our first gig. And they have provided on consignment to us probably $30,000 worth of Royer microphones for our live and studio performances. So I had told the guys back in the first meeting, we're going to do a Christmas record. And by mid-October, the record was in the can, and now we're going to release it. And so all of these crazy ideas that I had were, which I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try really hard. The other thing we talked about doing was going around to some of the local high schools and junior high schools and playing free concerts for the kiddos. I mean, how do you put that together with some of the most elite musicians in Nashville? These guys are working all the time. I talked to Dave Pomeroy down at our union, the AFM 257. And he said, man, the Musicians Trust Fund is doing this really cool thing now where if you go into schools, they are paying 100% of the freight on the band. I said, wait, what do you mean? We've all done green sheet gigs, where the way that works is if I book the band and the band costs $1,500, the school has to come up with $750, and the union will pay the other $750. Now they're paying the whole 100%. Wow. So I had told these guys I want to do next January in 2023. I want to do at least 5 high school dates in the Middle Tennessee area where we're going to capture video. We're going to play for a couple of hundred kids a day because they include all of the marching band, the concert band, the jazz band, all the ensembles, the orchestra, the choir people, the theater people. We'll all be sitting in the auditorium, and I talked to Dave. Dave said we can do 5 of them in January. I booked them, and the last week of January, we're doing 5 high school dates here in Middle Tennessee. So all of these crazy things, I believe, because I spoke them into the universe, and this will come into when this kind of comes into your wheelhouse. I spoke them with conviction to those men and women in that band last December, and they have manifested in our lives with a quickness that is not like anything I've ever seen. It's really, really amazing. So the record's going to be ready December 1st. It's 10 songs. Included in the package, of course, will be, a lovely cover art, all of the credits, all of the shorts. We're doing 2 reels on each tune to put over on Instagram and Facebook and live on YouTube. We're doing 3 full-length videos, and they're doing a trailer, almost like a movie trailer, where they'll have interviews and they'll have part of the music, and then they'll have part of the finished music and part of the live thing and all that kind of stuff. And all of that will be included in the digital package. And I think the pre-orders, which start on November 1st, which happens to be today when we're doing this interview, $10.
Crazy.
So I know that's a lot of information. I've had a couple cups of coffee this morning, as you can tell. But man, I can't tell you the last time I was this excited about a project. I mean, it's really remarkable. Rob Kwolek is playing. Tyler Yeager's playing, so that's trouble. The 3 of us, it's like, and Rob was in the sessions, man, and he's, Rob. I mean, great player, no BS. He's just a phenomenal trumpet player, perfectly in tune, perfectly executed. The guy is just pinpoint accurate, and he's a fun guy to hang out with. He says, "Hey man, you want a double D on that?" And I'm like, "You're not asking me to play it because I'm the wrong guy for that." And he says, "No, I got it, man." And and it's remarkable. Jeff Adams on trombone. He played lead with the Jazz Ambassadors for 20 years. My friend John Hinchy, Scott Hearn. The saxophone section was like 5 different guys, all of which are incredible. Kevin Gatsky, Evan Cobb, Mitch Riley. Mitch is the most soulful cat I know, and is so fun to be with as a human being because he's thankful for everything. I got stung by a bee. Somehow he turns that into but he left some honey right there. I can't believe it, and it's just, and, just all the way, the rhythm section was just phenomenal. My friend Edward Freitag, who's an incredible educator for a number of years, Steve Eby on drums, Scotty Huff. Do you know Scotty?
Scott, is a guitar player?
No, he's a trumpet player from Nashville, or that moved to Nashville right around the same time I did. And a couple years ago, he was out with a country artist with his horn section called the Hell Yeah Horns, and it was just great. He's a great trumpet player. He's a Scholke artist. For some reason he decided he's a great singer. He does a lot of kids music, and he does a lot of, he sits at home in his man pants and does sessions. And he's a great arranger and an incredible trumpet player. And I get this note. I'm like looking for bass player sub, and somebody said, "Well, why don't you call Scotty Huff?" And I was like, we got 3 trumpet players already. Scotty's a great player, but we've got, oh no, he's playing bass now. The kid comes in and is playing like he's been sleeping with that instrument for 30 years. Phenomenal. And an incredible attitude. And then one of my favorite guys in the whole band, really, John Palmer. John, I went to his house when we first started this thing. He's got every new and vintage keyboard known to man. and he is a generous and loving and incredibly talented spirit, and picked up the nickname from himself. I said, "Hey man, does anybody want to do that again?" After we had cut one of the things, and he said, "Yeah, I could probably take a second pass at that. You know, since my name is Johnny Two Takes, and it's stuck, man." So he's credited on the record, Johnny Two Takes Palmer, a great guy. I mean, it's just remarkable, the amount of talent. The they're all fired up about the project too, man. They believe in teaching. They believe that it's going to be successful. In late 2023 and 2024, I want this to be such a substantial account for everybody in this band that they can really quit doing the things that they don't want to do anymore. Because first of all, it's a love fest. It's killer music. I mean, we're doing "Get It On" by Chase.
Hey, come on.
It's like a high school trumpet player's dream. We're doing that. We're doing Birdland, and it's high notes, it's low notes, it's flugel, it's muted, it's rocket. It's just, I'm so tickled to death with it, man. Can you tell? I really am.
I don't see any excitement from you at all.
Woo, man, it's really neat. It's really neat.
But then again, I mean, you're definitely one of those cats that whatever you got going on, man. You don't make you don't half step it. You're in. And that's absolutely cool. But I think so one of the things that when you told me about doing this originally, I thought it was such a great idea for so many reasons. I mean, one is going to be ear candy for me, but like what you're doing in making instrumental music much more palatable to a new generation. We were lucky, being old heads, of being in that era when bands like Maynard's Band and cats like that were doing the tours. I mean, I remember seeing Maynard and Woody Herman, and the bands were always coming through our areas, and doing clinics, and you don't see that as much anymore. And it's really, I mean, that was inspirational to me, and that was one of the reasons why I really kind of got bit by the performing bug. So you being able to do that, and especially in Nashville, man, there's just so many freaking good people down there. And it's great that you're able to do that. So when we were talking about like manifesting, bringing it to an existence. Yeah, you're right. That's kind of like in my wheelhouse right there. But I think that the thing that is so crucial, and I think that the people really need to understand and learn, and this is a perfect example, is that when you go into something with that level of clarity and resolve and commitment and passion, there's actually you have to go out of your way to screw it up.
That's the truth. That is the truth. That's the truth.
And I think that, for so many people, whether it be in their musical careers or other, whatever professional careers or their relationships or things like that, there's so many people that are unhappy, but they're not clear on why they're unhappy, and they don't have a plan on how to get out of that funk.
Man, write a book, brother. Preach. I'm with you 100%. And just to kind of circle back to something you said, you don't half step it when you go into something. So years ago in Nashville, when I first came into Nashville, it was a much different scene. I think Nashville has become more accepting because it's such a melting pot for culture and music and just people in general. We got people moving in from all over the world, but from the East Coast, from the West Coast, and that used to be a situation where those two forces would bang heads. But I know some best friends, man, people who have met since they moved to Nashville. One guy's from New York. He's like, "Hey, yo, they don't got no good pizza down here." And another guy is like, "Well, I don't eat pizza because it has gluten in it," from California. And they're best buddies, and they're writing songs, and they're making hit records, and it's really incredible. Years ago, though, it wasn't as much like that. And I contributed to it on a level back then because I was not the same person that I am now. Um, if there were two decisions, positive and negative, I would take the negative decision almost 100% of the time. I don't do that anymore. You know, not I try not to do that anymore. Um, but I was sitting in a session, man, and we were working on a gospel record, and the arranger Lloyd Berry had done his normal magical job of arranging around this 30-piece choir with five lead voices and gospel rhythm section that the keyboard player is playing with all 10 fingers, two toes, and an elbow. So it's difficult to kind of wedge things in there, you know, horn wise. You know, it's like you got this wall of sound and beep, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's such a challenge. And I remember just thinking, God, I'm so lucky to be in this world. I'm so lucky to be sitting here, you know, playing high notes for Jesus, as it were. And the trombone player said, guys, this is taking a long time. I got another place I got to be. And it really changed my life because I thought, I want to walk in, and I've not always done this, but I strive to do this. It's the person, it's the me I want to be. Wherever you are, sitting right here with you, even though we're not in the same room, talking to you and feeling your energy and listening to the things that you have to contribute to this conversation. This is the coolest place on earth right now. And I want to be here. I want to be here. I want to be here to spread the word about Vinnie and the Hitmen. I want to catch up with you, my friend. And I do wish we were in the same room. I wish we were sitting right next to each other. This interview could go on for hours that way. But, you know, it's just like, that's the advice that I would give to anybody coming up is where you are right now that's just the best thing that you could be doing. And then finish that and enjoy that and live in that moment. And then move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? We're going to get it done. We wound up doing 4 songs. We got done 15 minutes earlier than we were supposed to. Not because he was complaining that we were, but it was just, you know, it's the ebb and flow of a session. You know how that goes. Sometimes you get to a lick and you can't play the lick and you got to move on and come back to the lick. And that takes a little extra time. But then the next tune, you read it down the first time. It's 80 bars long. You play 79 of them perfect, and all you got to do is overdub the last note, you know, and it just works that way. So that's what I'm trying to do. Really, really kind of enjoy that place where I am. And that's the cool thing about music. Music is life-changing, as we know. It's life-changing for us because we're lucky. You know, I'm tenacious and disciplined. You know how much I practice, man. I've already put 2.5 hours in today. And we'll put another couple of hours in. And so I'm taking that thimbleful of talent that I was given in whatever line it was in heaven before I came down as a baby, and I'm stretching it and I'm pressing on it and I'm patching the holes in it, making the most that I can out of it. But music is life-changing. That's the cool thing about this record. Circling back to Vinnie the Hitman, which, by the way, was not my idea. That was Tyler Yeager. He said, man, you're going to start a band. You're going to call it Vinnie and the Hitman. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is perfect. It's just perfect because it's all, you know, it's all musical hits all the time. We're not going to go break anybody's knees with a baseball bat unless, you know, we get to the end of the gig. They don't have the money, you know, and I got one in the car. So you don't have to worry about that. But none of my guys will hurt anybody. Just me.
I don't know, man. Qualix hurt me a few times, but
yeah,
here, you know.
Multiple ways.
In my wallet.
Yeah, I think it's like the gospel music industry. Okay, you know, full half of the recordings I've done, and still, I just did a record this week where I did 4 tunes for a guy out in California, and it was joyful, man. It was so much fun, so creative, and so awesome. The music was great. The message is good. The gospel music. So this is how I look at gospel music, and this will make sense in a minute. You got 6 kids, a wife. You're running behind. It's Sunday morning. You're yelling at everybody. Your youngest hasn't gotten out of bed. You got to feed everybody. You got to get them into the whatever clothes they're going to wear to church, and you got to get them in the minivan, right? In the minivan. And you know, feathers can be ruffled. and feelings can be hurt and voices can be raised in those situations. When you get in that car, that's where I come in. Because what you do is you go to your Sirius station and you find Kirk Franklin or Donnie McClurkin or Yolanda or whoever it is, and you bang it. And it's playing while you go to church. And so you're going from angry parent, hurt child to you're going through this transformation in the 20-minute ride to church. And this music is taking you to a place where you can go to church and you can receive what you are supposed to receive at church. Okay. I've always looked at that, whatever that middle part of that day is, that's me. That's what I do. That's the joy that I bring to somebody's life. I prepare them to worship. With this Christmas record, and it's funny because Halloween was yesterday, so Walmart is probably all poinsettias and Christmas trees right now. A lot of places have been doing it for a long time, so Christmas keeps getting earlier and earlier. And I'm not helping because I'm hawking a Christmas record. But these tunes, like you'll hear, like I'm looking at a list: "Angels We Have Heard on High," "Deck the Halls," "God Rest You Merry Gentlemen." Look, the happiest tune of all, "In the Bleak Midwinter." I don't know, "Jolly Old Saint Nick," "Lo How a Rose," "O Come, Up on the Housetop, We Three Kings." All these tunes you've heard a bazillion times. But when you hear our treatment on these tunes, and they sound like a song that but it's a Christmas song, that we're going to do the same thing. It's going to be after work. You will have just finished at 4 o'clock. You're going to be sitting in traffic and you're going to be chewing on steel nails because you're so pissed. And you're going to throw this record on, and this is what it's going to do. It's going to make you smile. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to bring you incredible joy of the season. And it's going to remind you why you just did that job for 8 hours and why you're sitting in traffic to get to your kid's basketball game or whatever you're doing. It's going to remind you. So in much the way the gospel music does, you can turn any song on this record on at any time, and it will, I promise you, I'll give you your money back if it doesn't make you smile. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds like a deal to me, man.
I will give you your money back if it doesn't make you smile. If a song on this record doesn't make you smile and laugh, I will give you your money back, and you can keep the record.
How about that? Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. Like you're saying, man, it's the power of music. And I think sometimes, it's easy for us to get jaded as working musicians. And I mean, it's life, man. It's life. We all go through this, and no matter what we do, there are times when you love what you do, and there's times when you're not particularly wanting to be where you are. But like you said, if you consciously choose to look at this moment that you're in as being the perfect place for you to be at this moment, and that you soak it all in, you do your best, you give your best, that's when the magic starts to happen in life. Because like you were saying, every moment you can make a good choice or you can make a bad choice. And I kind of feel like, if you don't like the way things are, then you need to change the way you do things. Because we kind of keep going through the same thing. And we have to consciously make that decision. It's like, well, if I hate my gig, well, I either need to get a new gig or I need to figure out how to love what I'm doing right now.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah, for me, like I don't have the illustrious career that you do, but just the fact that I've got a steady gig, I'm working. I'm not doing much recording, but I'm playing mostly events. I'm playing mostly weddings, which when I was a younger musician, I always kind of looked down on wedding bands. And I was telling the owner of our band, the head of it, it's like, I really feel blessed to have this gig, because weddings are like, they should be one of the best days of your life. Depending, hindsight, sometimes it may be the worst day of your life if you made a bad choice. But it's the fact that I get to be a major part of like the biggest day someone has got to experience in their life to this point. And that I will, I can contribute to that. I can contribute to that joy. And so I take it as a very serious thing, that what I'm doing is a service to somebody, and it's making their day better, making their life a little bit better. So it's an honor, it's a privilege, and there's a duty to it. That you can have fun, but you need to be serious about what you are doing. So like for you and the Hitman, what it sounds like to me is it's that perfect balance of you are all serious musicians. There's not a joker in that pack, but you guys all know how to have fun doing
Oh
what
yeah.
you're doing.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
that's cool.
I ran a DCA drum and bugle corps here in Nashville for about 5 years. I was the corps director. A huge privilege of my life. I met those people. I came in as kind of they were getting ready to go to finals one year, and I came in and I told them how they were swinging. They were swinging about as hard as the rusty gate in Jurassic Park, and they needed to clean that up. And in one rehearsal, man, I got them shaking it a little bit, and I'm like, and so the thing I used to say, and this is, I mean, it's a little crass, but it is true, sensitive to anybody that has suffered from this, but we were standing in the end zone with the DCA. It's not like the DCI course where they go on tour and they do the show like 60 times in a summer. With DCA, the performances are few and far between. So you get maybe 4 or 5 chances a year. And you've been working on this thing since December the year before. So you're in July now as your first show. And people are nervous. They're amateurs. They're paying to play. We did an end zone, where we would come out on the field from the end zone, kind of old school. And I'm standing there, and two things happened. Joe Murphy, who is an incredible human being, who one of my oldest friends. I've known him since the mid '80s too. He's down in Florida now. Tuba player, bass player. He was the band leader and the idea man behind the Loud Horns. Do you remember the Loud Horns?
Absolutely.
He did that CD with Steve playing the part of Maynard, which he did very well. Joe said, which I've stolen since, first time I ever heard anybody pat somebody on the butt and say, "Go be awesome." And I was like, God, that just encompasses everything. It encompasses everything. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm making a suggestion. I'm not saying that I'm awesome. I'm saying you go and you be the best you can be right now. For the next 12 minutes, I want you to be awesome. And when somebody else is putting that kind of energy behind you, it's not a big step for you to go, hell yeah, I'm going to be awesome. And then what I used to say was, guys, I know you're nervous. If anybody trips over the cure for cancer on the 50-yard line, we're all going to split it and be super rich. Okay, go get them. Meaning, it's it's not like we're standing over somebody doing open heart surgery. We're blowing in a tube. You know what I mean? And the thing about the wedding band, and I joke around about September, Earth, Wind, and Fire was just here. When you hear EWF play September, you're like, that's it. That's what I want to sound like. Now, you do September 120 times a year, let's say, right? So at the end of 120th time, you're like, oh, wait, if I play September one more time, and you got to add like, times 10 years. So you've played the song 1,000 times, you know what I mean? The challenge for somebody in that situation, and the challenge for the Hitmen too, because one of the things I promised was we're not going to do long solos. We're going to do 16-bar solos. So if you got something to say, you better say it quick and get out. Because my wife, Beth, who I adore and is the perfect partner for me, she is our demographic somewhat, because she would come to hear the big band concerts and she would say, Vinnie, I love when the whole band's playing and I can hear the melody and all that stuff. But when those guys stand up and take a 15-minute solo, I need a cup of coffee. And so I was like, okay, I'm not playing for other musicians, although it does appeal to other musicians, but I'm playing for the general public. I don't want to say, Jose, man, we got a gig on Wednesday nights, $10 cover. Will you come? And you say, yeah, sure, man, I'd be glad to. And then you say, hey, Vinnie, I got a gig on Friday. It's a $10 cover. You know what we've just done? We've just recycled $10. Neither one of us is richer. Neither one of us has made any money. We've supported each other, which is awesome. But what I want is I want you to come and I want to put you on a guest list. And I want a whole demographic of people with a little bit of extra money that are going to buy a Christmas record and a t-shirt and really, really enjoy what they're hearing. So we're going to appeal to them with that. I don't know what, I went off on a little tangent there. It was it's a September thing, man. So like when we were out on the road years ago with Kirk Franklin, the sections that I took out with me, I was fortunate to be able to book some of my best friends. And I said, guys, we're not creating here. We're not creating anything. When you play September, you're not creating anything. You're creating, there's a joyful noise coming out the end of the bell. But what you're doing is you're creating an experience, but you're not writing a piece of music or creating a piece of music or there's nothing esoteric about it. What it is repetitive excellence. So what you want to do is you want to think, God, I remember that EWF concert, man, and Bobby, here's how he played this. And then you tell the guys in the section, let's just, I know we've played this a million times. Let's listen to it and see if there's anything different we can do with this song to make it better and to make it more excellent. And then tomorrow night, I want to play it exactly the same way we played it tonight, only I want it to be one note better or one dynamic better or one short note or one articulation or whatever it is. Repetitive excellence. That's the key to, and we do it with Vinnie and the Hitmen because we got some stuff that's like a bunch of high Q flats that's really put together in a way that's very difficult. And it's a challenge. And you want to do it consistently because people are going to be laying for that lick. If they've heard it on the recording, they're going to go, well, let's see what we do with this on a live situation. And when you peg it or when you nail it or when you make their nose bleed a little bit because you played a beautiful double C, that's it, man. That is it right there. And so I don't like to use the phrase like-minded because I think it has some connotations outside of music, but it's there isn't a better way to put it. You stand up there with that band, whether you're playing for 500 people at a wedding or 50,000 people at a concert venue, and your job is to repeat excellence. And man, if everybody takes that attitude, again, that, and when you're in that groove, when you're thinking about that, man, I'm going to lay back 70% rule and I'm going to play the crap out of this lick in September. I'm just going to play it to the best of my ability right now. You're not thinking about where you're going next. You're definitely living in the moment because one note at a time, man, you're right there in the moment. And it is the coolest place to be where you are right there with your section guys and girls and with that band creating this situation for these people and making a joyful noise. I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day, man. And that's what I want to convey. I don't want to stand in front of college professors and students and say, your professors are teaching you wrong. You're never going to make any money at jazz and and there's only 60 trumpet jobs for classical musicians. I'm never going to say any of that stuff because I believe that if you have the ability and the tenacity and the discipline that you can make, I'm telling you, man, with the amount of talent that I was given and the physical situation that I have, it is a miracle that I can pick up the horn and play a tuning note C. And every time I do it, that's what I consider it, a miracle. And everybody's got those situations. So I want to stand up in front of these people, whether it's at a Christmas concert, Merry Happy Ho Ho, or if it's at a jazz festival, or if it's at a clinic, or wherever it is. And I want to convey the message to the people that if you've got it, that's really the key. And you need to find somebody that you trust to tell you if you've got it. You had a teacher that said, Jose, I think you got talent here, man. And I think you could do this for a living. And you were like, okay. And that was the first person that made you believe that you could do what you do, right? So you have to have it. You have to have somebody to encourage you. That's pretty easy to find because you can always zoom in on me. You know what I mean? And I'll let you know, man. And then, the discipline and the tenacity. And I want to say, What they're teaching you, classical music, is the most important thing that you can learn because it's a great foundation. And what they're teaching you as far as jazz goes, your band leader is going to turn around to you one day and he's going to say, in the key of Q flat, take a ride. You're going to have to play in concert E. You're going to have to play in concert B. All the booger keys, you know what I mean? So the jazz thing that you're learning, that lends itself to this commercial music. And those two things together, just because your teacher hasn't done a gig in 50 years, doesn't mean. Now, and even if you want to be a teacher, we've got so many teachers here in Middle Tennessee that play on the weekends. They take their lunch and they practice their trombone, so on the weekends they can go out and again make a joyful noise in a wedding band or a corporate band or whatever the deal is. And the other thing, sorry, if you come into town, if you move into Nashville, this is one of the things I want to say in my pitch. If you move into Nashville, and I ran into a tenor player about 6 months ago, young guy, 25, just got his master's, North Texas kid, burning player. I mean, that guy just tore that horn up one side and down the other. And I was really impressed. And I went over and I said, hey, man, what do you want to, welcome to Nashville. I'm one of the OGs. You probably won't have to pay attention to me, but what do you want to do? And he said, man, I really want to play jazz. And I said, you're in Nashville, Tennessee, right? Like knocking on the window. He said, yeah, man, there's a bunch of jam sessions around and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? My pitch on that has changed a little bit. If you go to Rudy's, which is the big jazz club here in town, I think it's Wednesday nights, might be Tuesdays, they have a jam session. They have a leader of the band and they have the band. Those guys get paid. If you show up at the door with a horn, you pay half cover, which you think is cool, but you're paying to play, right? And you can go to all these jam sessions all week. What I want you to do is I want you to get a gig with a corporate band on a Saturday, because there's a band here in town. If you fly out Friday night, play one gig on Saturday and come back Sunday morning, they will pay you $1,200. For a 25-year-old guy that's living in a house with 16 other people and eats Happy Meals every day, $1,200 a week is plenty of money for you to do whatever you want. Then you can go to all of those jam sessions all week and work on your jazz chops all week. And then on a weekend, you play September. But so I said to him, I said, you got to know Uptown Funk. Oh, yeah, I know that tune. I'm like, do you know it? Could you play it for me right now? Well, no, I mean, I would need a chart. Well, then you don't know it. I want you to know that tune because it's a great song. September. Oh, yeah, I've played September. Yeah. I said, what about Mustang Sally? He picked up his phone, went into his notes, and said, Mustang Sally, who's that by? Had never heard the song. So that's the message, man. I mean, there have been years when, and I've said this before, there was a gig I had a number of years ago. And I think you and I talked about this in our last conversation. My wife said, what's your magic? And I told her what my magic number was. And the next couple of days, that gig came up and the guy asked me what I want to make. And I told him my magic number. And he said, yes. It was $1,000 a day for that gig. I'm trying not to be a jerk. I'm not saying it to brag. What I'm saying it is, if there's a kid out there that's watching this right now that's in college, that's trying to make a decision about what he wants to do, I want that statement right there. You can make $1,000 a day playing the trumpet. And that's all I did was play trumpet. I wasn't playing keyboards or percussion or being a road manager, any of that stuff. I was a trumpet player in a 4-piece horn section. That's how much I made. And it is possible for a kid from a town that was that big. I did not have a private trumpet teacher all the way through high school because there was nobody around to teach me. And now this. So all of that stuff together, all of that good energy, all of that good stuff has come together with Vinnie and the Hitmen. And if we can stand in front of 300 people at one of these high schools that we're playing in January, and through our message and our music, make them say, you know what, I still want to be an orthodontist, but I think I want to keep on playing. I want to do marching band. I want to go to Alabama and be in the $1 Million Band and travel all over the country. And then, I'll be making good money as a dentist. I can buy a really good horn and I can play on the weekends. And then I'll meet my super hot wife at a jazz festival. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just so it's so, and so all of that energy is in Vinnie and the Hitman, and I can't wait to get in front of people. And I had a guy, a friend of mine, a drummer, who came to the first gig, and he said, Vinnie, the energy that the band is making right now is incredible. He said, when you all take a collective breath to start a song, the entire audience goes like this, moves in, and then when you play, they move back. And that, to me, man, I mean, there's just not much better than that, man. It's super cool. So buy our Christmas record.
Well, for sure, that's going to be my typical Christmas playlist is Harry Connick,
Oh yeah.
Chicago, and Bootsy, the Bootsy Christmas album.
Yeah, indeed, man. That's
so
fantastic.
Now we're going to throw in Vinnie and the Hitmen, and that's definitely going to be on the must listen for me for sure. But what I like is that combination of taking the like you said, a public domain. For the most part, these are tunes that we all know, we've heard before, giving them an updated treatment, giving them a somewhat entertaining kind of slant, using a little musical humor and things like that to just to make it a little bit different. I think that's great because it shows that there's a level of personality and there's a level of inventiveness and creativity that goes into this process. So it's not just whipping out another chorale. It's not whipping out just another typical jazz arrangement, a smooth jazz arrangement of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. So what you're doing, it shows that anything is possible in terms of what you can do as a musician if you're willing to take the chance. Now, sometimes it's not going to be commercially successful or accepted by everybody, but there really are no limits on what you can do musically other than the limits that you put on yourself.
I agree 100%, man. I think anymore, and especially now, because you're not having to go in and sit down in front of a record. Man, back in the 90s, there was a guy here in town who had a company, and they would do these karaoke tracks, and it was all current stuff, mostly stuff. He owned Sony Tree, so he owned everybody. Sony now owns Sinatra and a lot of really heavy. But anyway, he made his money in publishing, and he would do these songs where he would do a copy of the song, and he would do it in 3 different keys. He would do it in a low, a medium, and a high. And if you just wanted to perform it publicly, it was $50. If you wanted to record it, it was 100. And the guy made just mints, just printing money, because people would buy the tracks and they'd be like, "Yeah, this sounds great." And I approached him about doing a record, but it was sort of like a Music Minus One play along. It was along these the same idea as Vinnie and the Hitmen, but it was a recording. We'd go in and we'd do all the rhythm stuff. We'd do a 4-piece horn section, and then you could pull each one of through the recording. You could pull each one. You could play the trumpet part or the sax, or the tenor part or the trombone part, or you could have a whole section playing along with it. I thought it was a killer idea, and I remember going into his office and sitting in the chair that was lower than his, and it was just this. It was like he was like felt like he was 60 feet away, and when he spoke, his voice was super low, the guy that does Dirty Jobs. I love him,
Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe, and but with an echo. What do you have for me? Me. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was terrible. Now you don't have to do that. That's one of the really cool things about this record that I want to explain to everybody too. So if you have an idea, now listen, man, again, what you say, it may not be commercially successful, but you just never know, man. There's been some stuff that has changed venue, and what I mean by that is, like, it's come out on a record and then it's turned up on a TV commercial, or it's turned up in a movie soundtrack and it's become hits. That was not mainstream. So if you have an idea, get together a very simple recording rig. If you're a keyboard player, all you need is a computer and a keyboard. If you're a horn player, you can start with a $40 Amazon USB microphone and build it up from there. Because when you get your first check, the first thing you're going to buy is a new microphone from Michael Barkley, our friend in Northern Ireland, Barkley Infinity Microphones. So, like, yeah, there are no limits. There are no limits to what you can do. And I wanted to, speaking of the record company, for years, man, the record companies made the lion's share of the money. I was on tours in the early '90s where the artist would be like, "Well, I mean, what are you going to give us in tour support?" And the record company would pay for all of the buses for the whole tour. That's how much money they were making. $5,000 a week or $6,000 a week per bus, 4 buses. $25,000 a week, 10-week tour, $250,000. Not even a drip of sweat off of their forehead. Now they have these 360 deals where they own a portion of everything. They own merch, and they own, if you appear on TV, they get a portion of that. If this, then, I mean, it's vicious because it's very difficult to make money in the music business. This is what we did with this record. This is one of the coolest things I've come up with. I didn't come up with that has been put in my path. It's called a joint venture. So everybody on the record gets a percentage of the gross sales of the record. So let's say, as an example, I'm not going to tell you what the guys are making, but let's just say, as an example, that you get 5% of every record sold. The record sells for $10. Okay? That's 50 cents. That doesn't seem like a lot of money. If you sell 100 records, it's $50. If you sell 1,000 records, which is not difficult to do, especially with, the social media following and, appearing on podcasts like this. I mean, guys might, just say, oh, it's $10. I mean, it's 2 gallons of gas or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So if we sell 1,000, 5% would be $500. So if we sell 10,000, that same musician is going to make $5,000 for 2 days' work in the studio. And I guarantee you, if we sell 10,000 records, it will be the best and most lucrative session anybody in that band has ever done, including residuals, which I get, I get a fair little pop from residuals. But if we started to get into it, I mean, you can do the math. I'm doing 100, 1,000, 10,000. If we got lucky enough to sell 100,000 records, then the guy that he didn't do any writing, he came in and he was awesome and he played his part, is going to make $50,000. I want you guys to think about that. I want people to think about that when they grab this digital download and they say to their best friend, "Man, you got to hear this record. I'm going to lay it on you." It's $10. It's $10. I mean, seriously, that's a meal at McDonald's, which I don't, I hope none of you do. I'm sorry. It's a couple bottles of water. It's 3 gallons of gas. It's nothing these days. It's $10, but it means a tremendous amount to the people that put the time and energy into this thing. And I think it's a really fair deal, because if, let's say, we paid everybody master session with doubles, so they'd be making about $500 a session. We did 4 sessions, so that's $2,000. But that's the limit. No matter how many records it sells, you're going to make $2,000. This has so much potential to be a great Christmas present for these cats that played on this record for a long time. The other thing is, every year we're going to add 3 or 4 tunes to the collection. So it'll come, November 1st next year, it'll come up again, and a whole different demographic of people can buy it again and then add another 4 tunes for a couple of bucks. It's really I think it's a smart way of doing it, and it's a really fair way of doing it. And once everybody kind of understood the math and how it worked, um, it's I think it's a really cool thing, and I encourage other people to do it. It's an official union contract. You do it under the auspices of the union. Everybody writes their name, their social, what they played, and their percentage goes at the end. If it goes into a movie, with some of this music, man, this could be like a Subway commercial or or whatever the deal is. When
Right.
it changes venue like that and under the auspices of the union, each one of these guys will make, for every 13 weeks it plays, a tremendous, tremendous little taste. And so it is definitely the gift that's going to keep it's the gift that keeps on giving for the people that are going to receive it, because every time they turn it on, it's going to smile, joy, you know, a reminder of the season, the reason why we're here and all that stuff. I've got a super rough mix of all of the tunes, but I got one in particular. Can I play it?
Oh yeah, love to
I
hear.
think that'll be good.
Yeah, let's see what we got here.
So basically what they do is they get all of there were 70 tracks on each one of these tunes, 70 plus tracks on each one of these tunes, all the way from drums to percussion and all the horns and guitars and everything. So the mix engineers, they get a hold of it and they put together a little quick, what they call a rough mix. And so what we do with that rough mix is we give it to the video guys as a placeholder. So when they're working, they can say, okay, the trumpets are featured here. Let's do a shot of the trumpets. Okay. So this is John Hinchy's arrangement of We Three Kings. And it's done in, well, I'll tell you the style of it afterwards, but you're going to guess it right away. I'll play about 30 seconds, see if you can recognize it. You ready? Here we go.
Let's do this.
I want to listen to the whole thing, but that's a taste.
That is the bass playing is killing on that.
It's so stupid, man. I mean, it's just like the drummer Steve Eby. He's a huge in education, man. He teaches a lot. He was the tribute band drummer around here forever, man. This guy played in he played in the Chicago band, the Steely Dan band, the Eagles, every tribute band. And this guy would show up before the advent of iPads, and he would have a ring binder with his shorthand on every song. And I'm telling you, man, I played dozens and dozens of gigs with this cat, and I never heard him miss. I never heard him miss one time. The most prepared guy, and the drum. The drum, he does like a drum solo in the middle of that. Let's see if we can find it, man, because it's so badass. I'm sorry. I'm gonna turn it on again, okay? Let me see if I can find it here. It's just, so I mean, it's not just about like if you want to sit there and turn this thing up to like 11 and just really get crazy with the horns. It's definitely a record for you. Get a little wassail or some eggnog or something. But the rhythm section, man, is just like the key. Like there's a couple of B3 solos by Johnny Two Takes, and it's just like every like there's so much going on. It's cohesive. It sounds like a band, But if you really focused on one thing, like that melody we just did, dun, bum, 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 in the background on the second time through, one of the trumpet players takes it up an octave and it's clean as a pin, man. And you're just like, well, that's different. Wait, I gotta listen to that again. I mean, there's just so much stuff that you can dig into. And then if you're a rock and roll fan, a Led Zeppelin fan, that song, man, is just like, it's crazy,
Yeah,
crazy.
that's nuts.
So much fun. And they're all like that. They're like, we did. There's a little not really a rap section, but do you remember when Springsteen did Santa Claus is Coming to Town and he was
Yeah,
talking to the band? When we
yeah.
did that, and I was hollering at the band, and we did that. It was kind of in the style of that. Let's see what else. Um, we did one in the style of Whitney Houston, Greatest Love. We did from the 80s. We did one in that, and it's so all over the place. It's really cool. We did a reggae version of I forget which tune it was, and then Scott, who I was talking about earlier, Scott Hearn, who's the bass trombone player, also an arranger, did an arrangement of da, 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 da. I think that's in the bleak. No, that's Low How a Rose. And I'm sitting up on high D's and E's in 2 octaves with the trumpets in the staff and the trombones below me. And it is pristinely in tune. It's just like it's some of the hardest stuff I've ever done. I was like, I can't do this. This is not my thing. It was it's gonna be a great record, man.
Oh, I mean, I love to see the excitement, the enthusiasm. So I know I'm going to have it. I know I'm going to have it for sure. But one of the things that I mean, I saw a post that you did recently about being a leader and stuff like that. But is this the first band that you've actually kind of put together, led officially?
Sort of. I had a band when I was in my 20s, and we were all a bunch of college friends. We were in our last year of college. I had left and gone, and I was in Cincinnati for a year, and I played in a 13-piece house band, man. And I came back to Baltimore, and I had the whole book, and it was really great. And so I got some of my college buddies, and we put together a band called The Heat and the Cold Sweat Horns. And it was basically a corporate band. We played clubs around Baltimore and all that kind of stuff. And I I could write a very short book on everything you should not do as a band leader from that experience. And so I've tried to take the best band leaders that I've had, and there have been some really good ones, and take that along with the stuff that I did incorrectly with my very first band and combine it into this band to be a better leader. The big one, and I think the one that surprises people, is when I call and say, "Man, I got a gig," and the guy on the other end of the phone says, I'm sorry, I'm already working. And I've been in that situation where the band leader was like, "Well, I need you," and I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry, I've made a commitment to somebody else," and, "Well, I'm never going to call you," blah blah, whatever it wound up being. And the cool thing is that I have this sense of joy when I know that the guy. First of all, the reason why they're working is because they're the baddest cats in town. That's number one. So I got good taste in musicians. And secondly, I want them to work. I mean, one of the kids that couldn't do one of the guys that couldn't do the sessions said, "Vinny, I got two master sessions that day," and I'm like, "You need to do those, man. You need to do those, and you don't need to give it a second thought ever, because that's where you need to be. I want this to be part of your future, but this band will always be here, and those master sessions will not." So that's been the biggest learning thing for me, is to really be happy for my people when they're working.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's a different world. Uh, you know, I have had this conversation with a lot of people and people that I work with even to this day. If they're like in their 30s, their 20s or 30s, they didn't go through the heyday of the horn bands. You're like, if you were out gigging in the 70s and 80s, yeah, you could find a band to play with full time. Right. And that doesn't happen anymore. There are very few bands that are there. I mean, there are a few out there, but there are few and far between that are working so much that you can reasonably say, this is my gig. And, I don't need to do anything else. So if you want to make a living playing, you have to be much more of a freelance player, and you have to take gigs as they come up. But like you're saying, man, that it's the difference between being happy for someone because they're good and they're able to do something, and then taking it personally when they can't make a hit, And it's like, no, it's got nothing to do with you. It's got everything to do with, A, I got to make my rent, and B, being a person of your word of, if I made a commitment to somebody, if someone asked me to do something and I say, I'm going to do this, then not backing out of it, because something better, the big BBD shows up. It's like saying, no, I'm committed. I made my commitment. I must honor this commitment. And, in the future, when you ask me to do something and I say yes, and that you can count on me, so I feel kind of like, it's janky when people keep, constantly bailing on gigs. Like, that's when I would stop calling someone if they're constantly bailing on stuff to chase the bigger and better hit.
But if it's like, I remember several times through my career where, I got smart enough to tell the people the only reason I would bail on you is for a big session or a TV show, because those are the two things that I really, really enjoyed doing the most. And that's what I see as my future. I can't, I don't want to stand and play for 4 hours at a time, unless it's on a TV show or a recording session. Sit in a recording session. So I there have been a couple times when I've said that, and then had to call and say, look, man, I got a call. It was a big band gig last year, and the kid is really nice, and I really want to play with the band, but I got called to do the Huckabee show, and it's there's no rehearsal. You basically do an extended sound check. You tape the show, and I don't even know what it pays, but it's good, and it's TV, and my mom can see me. That's like a big thing. Can my mom see me doing this? Well, then it's a priority. You know what I mean? At 84 years old and living 800 miles away. So, yeah, man. I mean, I just, but it's not for the weak, man. Being a band leader it's just not, I know that when we do a $25,000 gig, I'm going to get my leader's share, and I'll make back a little bit of the money that I've invested on this. And everybody in the band knows that. They know. If I call them and say, hey, we got a gig and it pays $1,000, they're going to be like, yes, I'll be there. I want this band to turn into, and I think this is substantial enough I want it to be, alluding to what I was talking about, I want it to be a $25,000 a year account for the sidemen. Because if you look at like how much, I don't want to know, but how much do you make off of the wedding band? Let's say, whatever it is. All right. That's a substantial, let's say it's $15,000 a year. That's a substantial account. And it's a portion of your income that you don't want to go away, and can't go unnoticed. I used to do it with session accounts. Like I would say, this producer is a $5,000 a year account. I have to make him a priority. And so, and then the way past that is you say, you only need 15 of those, to be making $75,000 a year, which at the time was a goal. It's about $200 a day. And I was like, my first goal was to make $100 a day. Then it was $1,000 a week. And then it was $200 a day. And it, and it's changed through the years financially, because I don't put as much emphasis on the money. But I know that the older guys that are sort of settled in, that are in the band, they're the first guys to say, yeah, sure, I'll do it for a percentage. I believe in the project. The younger guys that are not and are just coming up, those are the guys that are like, well, I could teach 6 lessons that day and make, $300, or I could come and do this, this high school gig for 150. So I'm going to need to hang with the lessons. I get that. I totally understand that. And they have made a commitment to the kids. Although with the teaching thing, do you do any teaching?
Not a whole lot anymore.
No, I don't either. But with the teaching thing, like a friend of mine, old friend of mine, Jimmy Bolin, Jimmy and I made a couple thousand records together. He's a great husband and a father, got two beautiful kids and a wife and a family, saxophone player, but like doubler extraordinaire, just bought like a ridiculous flute. And he did a session, and it was the principal clarinetist, the principal flautist, the principal oboe, and him in the section to play both clarinet and flute when they needed him. So he's that guy. But he said, he was teaching at TSU, Tennessee State. And he would get a call for a session and have to call the kid and say, we need to reschedule. And I'm going to tell you why. This session, I really enjoy recording. It's what I want to do with my career. It pays $450. And because my schedule after that is flexible, and I know yours is too, because I've already asked you, I want you to understand it's okay to move this as long as I honor my commitment to you, because I believe that you're going to be a player of a caliber that will have to do the same thing. And this is the professional way to do it. So it's an opportunity so that's a little bit different too. But man, there's so many great players here, and I knew with a 14-piece band, I was going to have to be real deep on the sub list. So I got my guys that I call first, and I always hope that they can make it. But then I've got guys that are equally as competent. I had my friend Mike Haynes on the Christmas session. If you listen to any music from mid 1980 through today that had trumpet on it, Mike was likely on it. Thousands and thousands, or he's the best lead trumpet player I've ever heard in my life. And brings, no matter what part he's playing, he brings incredible musical vibes. If he's playing third trumpet, he makes the second trumpet player and the lead trumpet player better because of the way that he plays third trumpet. I mean, he's just a gifted guy. I've never heard anything like it. I've never been with anybody like it in my life. And so Tyler, my regular Tyler Yeager, couldn't make the session, and I was able to call Mike Haynes, which is a step in the exact same direction as far as excellence goes. You know what I mean? And just being able to hang out with him for the day. He was kind of he's a Buddhist, so he's kind of the peacemaker. And it would just be like, we'd get to the end of a take and people would be like, oh my God, I got to do that. I'd be like, ding, it just chilled everything out, man. He was, as a matter of fact, he's credited on the record as the peacemaker. You know what I mean? He's just an incredible person. And so when you're deep like that, man, Jack, do you know Jack Wengroski?
No.
He also played lead trumpet with the Jazz Ambassadors for 20 years. He lives here in town.
Okay.
He's a badass, man. I mean, the cat can play, you know what I mean? And so if I need somebody on any place jazz, went down to Miami, got a master's in jazz studies. And so he can play lead and he can play jazz, and he's a good hang. So, if Tyler or Rob can't make it, he's one of the guys that I would call, or Mike, or, and so it's real deep, man. So it's real cool. So I'm happy when Rob or Tyler when they can make it. I'm more happy when they can make it, but when they can't, you just go down the list as a band leader. You go down the list. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't want to get to the point where that I put somebody on the list because they're always available. I always want to call the guys that I know are working first, because I know it's because they're the best. And that's what I want to put in front of the students, because if a college student is sitting there and he's listening to this guy play a jazz solo and he's going, well, I mean, I think I could do that. I want it to be, holy crap, I got to talk to this guy so I can find out how in the world I can do that. You know what I mean? So those kind of things, man. I love it, man. I love doing what I do.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, like, for you, all of the things that you've experienced over your career, the different acts that you've played with, all the sessions that you've done. This kind of, in a way, kind of brings that all together. And I think that going back to earlier statements, like, this is the perfect spot. This is the place that you need to be in your life right now, and just enjoy the ride, man. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch unfold.
Thank you very much, man. I'm super excited about it, and of course, when we're up your way, you will be our special guest for a feature. We got some really cool stuff coming up, man. Jeff Coffin, you know Jeff
Oh yeah.
from okay. Jeff's an old friend. I Jeff and I came to town exactly the same time, and I always knew that he was special. I had no idea that he was going to be such an incredible superstar, and the reason why he's a superstar is because of his playing and the changes that he's gone through as a human being. Because when I first met him, much like myself, he was not as kind or as peaceful or as centered as he is now. And that cat now is just a bundle of love and joy and peacefulness, which is really awesome. Until he picks up a saxophone, and then he still sounds angry sometimes. Monster player. So I called him and I said, hey, I told him about the band. And you don't have to spend much time with me talking about Vinnie and the Hitmen to know how passionate I am about it and how I am going to do everything in my power to make it, a success. And by success, I don't mean money. I don't mean records. I don't mean recordings. I don't mean Facebook followers or Instagram followers. I mean standing in front of a group of people and touching one person in the crowd, touching their soul in a way that makes them understand everything I wanted to do is possible. That's what I want to do. And if we're in front of 300 or 3,000 and we get one, job's done. Move on to the next crowd. You know what I mean? So I told Jeff about it, and he's like, man, stop. I'm in. What do you need? So Jeff is going to do a feature. We're recording it in January. And one of the first things he says was, man, I'd love to share this with the Dave Matthews people, the fan groups. They'll love it. I don't know if you know those numbers, man, but it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, I know those numbers. Yes.
Here's the other one. Lusinger is his last name. He's a guitar player with Garth Brooks. He and I have worked together on the Musicians Hall of Fame stuff. He's an incredible human being. He's been with Garth since the 80s. He was his first guitar player, and now his last guitar player. They just did a world tour. And I said, I want to do a Garth tune, and he had a recommendation for a song, and he said, well, this is what I want to do, man. I want to play the lead, and then the horns come in, and it's like kind of a gospel-y R&B thing. I think it'll be great. And without even asking, he said, man, I really want to share this with the Garth's people. You think that would be okay? And I was like, yes, please. So that's millions. You know what I mean? And I mean, like, they're Garth fans and they're Dave Matthews fans. So just to get that kind of exposure is really incredible. And I had a great experience the other day. It was really cool. Jay Webb, do you know Jay with
I know Jay.
Corey Wong?
Yeah.
Corey Wong okay. Well, Jay's a great guy, and he went from 0 to 100 really quick. He's over 100,000 followers on Facebook, and it's because of the content and the quality of the content. And those guys are goofballs. Corey is a genius, goofy man. So Jay put a post up, and do any of my Nashville, this is last week, any of my Nashville or New York buddies have a pocket trumpet? And somebody tagged me in it, and Jay and I know each other cursorily. We've tried to have lunch down here a bunch of times, and I said, man, I got one, and I PM'd him, and then we started texting, and he said, man, I don't want to buy one, and Corey wants to do a gag with it. They're all playing mini instruments, and I said, yeah, man, sure. And so I went down to the rehearsal, and it's all set up, and of course I want to stay and hear the rehearsal, man, golly, but they were on lunch. Jay came up, trombone player, Mike, I think his name is Michael, and And at the end of the conversation, he tried it. He was trying to play it like a piccolo. He kept fingering it like piccolo. And I said, it's not a piccolo, man. Come on. He's like, I'm never going to get used to this. So I gave it to him. He's going to use it for 3 weeks, going to ship it back through Jay Landers up there in New York City. He said, yeah, man, thank you so much. I said, well, there's a catch. And he said, he's from New York. So he's like, what do you want? I said, we're doing a Christmas record with Vinnie and the Hitmen. Do you know the band? He said, oh my God, yeah. And the trombone player said, oh yeah, you did that thing with Roy Agee. Get it on, man. That was killer. Great. I said, I would like it once we figure out, the drop date and all that stuff on the drop date. I want you to put it on your social media. And he said, absolutely. How many times you want me to do it? And so it's like, the energy and the synergy and all of that stuff. I think that comes from the infectious or contagious energy that comes from the source, no matter what it is. You meet people and you just want to be with them, or you just want to help them, or you just want to be a part of what they're doing. And it doesn't take, I haven't been this passionate about a lot of things in my life, with the possible exception of my trumpet playing and my beautiful wife, Beth, you know what I mean? And it's a real joy to watch it happen. It's a real joy to watch it happen. And I find myself in those moments where I'm like, I put some pretty crazy stuff out there and it's all come true. Should I put more out there? And of course the answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. I got a guy, the guy that we work for, Joe West, over at the barn. He said, man, I got a project coming up. I'd like to use the whole horn section on it. And it's a major label project, so it'll all be on the card. And I'm like, okay. So we're going to, as a result of us recording at his place, we're going to be on a record, all of us. I don't have to decide when I get the call, hey man, I only need a 4-piece section. I don't have to decide who to call. I call the guys that were there. It's just awesome. So I don't know what's happening, man, but I am digging it. And I think when people buy this record, man, they're gonna feel it. It's palpable in those recordings, man. They're gonna feel it, and I'm hoping to make a lot of noses bleed when they crank it up to 11, and I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Great. Well, it certainly will. I mean, I know it will be great, and I know that just from the little clip that you played for us. I mean, it's got it all. It's got the excitement. It's got the musicality, the pyrotechnics, but more than anything else, it's got passion. And that comes out. So this isn't, and nothing against other session work that people do, but sometimes people are playing. They're playing for the paycheck. And this is all from the heart. So I'm sure.
I got another one. Let me play it, and then we can. I know you're busy. We'll say goodbye. This is starts out as kind of a brass chorale. It's really pretty, and then it goes into a groove that I am absolutely positive you will recognize. All right, here we go. Let's see it. All right. Come on, computer. You can do it. I know you can. Hold on. Here we go. I had to leave you with that high G.
Oh yeah, little sweet kiss off there, a little jump jive and wail there.
How about that, man? Ain't that something? Oh
Oh,
gosh, I
that's
hope we
that's
don't get in
great.
trouble. I hope we don't get in trouble from the publishers, man. We ripped off a lot of good music.
Uh, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So yeah, that's great,
Good
man.
sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, you do. You have to have a sense of humor, I think. But yeah, I mean that's phenomenal, and I'm just so happy that you have gotten this off the ground because I remember talking with you when this first kind of came up, the whole idea came up, and I talked to you, I talked to Jaeger and stuff, and I think this is just really it has the potential to be very impactful in so many different ways, and uh, I was going to ask you the question, what your definition of success for the band was, and you've already answered that. That you definitely have a vision of what you want this to be, and I think that's going to be the key. That as long as that vision stays clear, and you obviously have people that are on the same wavelength, that are passionate about what they're doing and how they can contribute to what your vision for this is of creating change in people, touching people's lives. So, man, I'm so excited about this. I mean, I hope everybody not only buys a copy of this for themselves, but buy it for all your music lovers in your family, man. $10. I mean, that's a great Christmas gift right there.
Oh,
So
hey, wait, and it gets better. On the pre-orders, man, if you buy 5 downloads, it's $45. So yeah, and then once December 1st hits, it'll go up to $12 and $10. It's still $10 each for 5 downloads. And then what you can do is, with a good conscience, honest to goodness, anybody who's a muso or who has done any recording or understands the industry at all knows that I mean, these, in a perfect world, music would be free, but then somehow the musicians would still be getting paid, because my wife and I have this discussion all the time. Like, they it's called playing a trumpet. It's not called working a trumpet. When I was on tour with Martina, one of the first gigs we did was like a corporate thing on the west coast of Mexico, and we get to the lobby, and they have tequila shots, and there are whales jumping out of the Pacific Ocean, and I tried to convince her that it was work. She still doesn't believe it, and it's been 6 or 8 years, man. She's like, "Oh, Mexico, really?"
really,
Yeah. So, but man, I just, and this is the first podcast I've done about. I've mentioned it before, but this is the first one I've done about it, and you were the first person I thought about, man, because I really feel like the wavelength that you travel through life on it's something to aspire to. Like, when I grow up, I want to be more like you. Like, and I know it's not a perfect journey. I, but those two words, it's a journey. You know what
yeah.
I mean? And I like the direction that you've chosen for yourself. Uh, and I love the direction that you're trying to help other people go in. And I knew that because I am so frenetic with this Vinnie and the Hitman, and I knew that you would be the perfect guy to keep it on the rails, and the perfect venue to kind of introduce this. This is really um, the first time we've talked about I've been, yammering on about a Christmas record, but I had no idea it would really be a reality. This is really the first one, and probably the only one I'll do. Um, and we're going to feature it on Positive Trumpeters Worldwide, and hope people bite, and all that kind of stuff. But just encouraging as many people if you don't buy our record, this is what I would ask of anybody that's watching. If you don't buy our record this year, which I'd love for you to do, um, buy somebody's music, because I'm telling you, man, that one record sale makes a difference.
Yeah.
It really does, man. It's both, intrinsic by, I'm kind of a counter. So, as soon as we start getting sales, I'm going to be sitting around, and we got 45. It's awesome. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I just want these guys to be rewarded so greatly for their time and their talents and the way that they gave of themselves to this crazy idea. And if somebody buys the record, that translates directly to everybody in the band. And it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just
Well, and not to be a Debbie Downer, but that's one of the things that frustrates me the most. I think in dealing with musicians is, I mean, granted, I know there are a handful of us out there that are making good bank, and the vast majority are just they're surviving. And I understand, wanting to save a buck here and things like that. But, supporting fellow artists, I think is just, it's so important. It's, you can't always be like, hey man, can you get me into this gig? Hey man, can you give me a copy of this, or, give me. Um, you know, like even doing this podcast, it's a labor of love, and it's an expense. It is an expense. And for when people sometimes they take that for granted. And you really do need to support the people that are producing content that you are gaining benefit from. So whether it's go out and buy that album, go out and buy that T-shirt, whatever it is, but support the people that are making the music that you love. Because if you're a musician, you of all people should be doing that, because you know what it feels like. You know what it feels like to play that 4-hour gig for $25 and a free beer. Nobody loves doing that. So,
And I'll say this, man. I've done it. I've done it many times. Last night I played a salsa concert with my friend Lalo Davila. He's a pearl artist down at MTSU. He's been at the school for 35 years. He's been tenured for 25. So the first time they've ever allowed him to do a concert on campus of his band, and it went over great. It went over killer, and it was me and Rob and Tyler, and two trombones and two saxophones, and we were playing, Esta Noche, and we were doing just some really challenging material. But I was able to kind of just hang out and just, when I anything above the staff, then I would just play. You know what I mean? So it was really great. And two things happened. There was a girl who was playing in the college salsa band, and she was warming up on her excerpts in the band room, and I heard her. And I walked up to her and I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Grace." I said, "Grace, you sound fantastic." And she said, "Well, thank you very much." I said, "You also owe me $5." And she said, "What for?" I said, "Because you're warming up on classical music for a salsa gig." No. And but what's going to happen is, man, through a conversation, she's getting ready to do, I don't know what it's called technically. You might know. They send in a audition MP3 for graduate school, so it's like prelims or whatever the deal is, I guess. And I said, "Well, how are you doing it?" And she said, "Well, I usually do it in the auditorium here, we're live with a piano player, and we get once through, and I have somebody here engineer it." I said, "Nah, you need to come to my place. You need to come to my place, get your keyboard player to bring a digital piano. We'll get all the beds down, and then you can do it. And the microphone and the processing and the mixing will, all things being equal, if there's 5 trumpet players trying for this thing, we'll put you at the next level because of the quality of the recording. They'll take you more seriously because they'll be able to hear what you did. This won't be into an iPhone." And so it's really a lot of synergy there. And then after the concert, this kid comes up to me, wide-eyed, just big saucer eyes, and he's standing around with a cup. I could tell they were trumpet guys, and he's like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, man, it's easy when you're playing with these guys and blah, 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 blah. I said, are you a trumpet player? He said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, right now, I want to sit down with you and play some notes. And I said, well, let's get together, man. Let's grab a bunch of the guys and come over to the studio and we'll have a trumpet hang. And they're like, oh, really? Would you do that? And I'm like, yeah, of course I would. And as I was walking away, and I said, and it's free. And they freaked out, you know what I mean? Because I don't really charge for, I don't, what the hang time with me is not really a lesson. I can't teach anybody anything about playing a trumpet, but I can help you with the general things like drinking more water and having a better attitude, you know. But it was so cool to be able to do that, man. To be able to just on that small scale. And that would be something I would have had to have thought about back in the day. And now it's something I desire and I want to do it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just ready to. And so that's a couple cool things that came out of last night. Man, that's really
Well,
yeah.
and I think you're going to be getting a lot more of that once, you guys start hitting the schools and stuff like that, because just that talent that's going to be on the stage with you, and just the sheer energy and the joy that it's going to bring to people. You're going to inspire a whole group of people, because for so many people, they can only see those really regimented tracks. Like, I either will be an orchestral player and have a symphony gig, or I will be a teacher, or I will be playing jazz clubs. And they don't see the breadth of opportunities that is available, again, if you have a vision and if you have a passion and if you put it into play. So that, I think that's going to be the biggest impact that you're going to be able to make, is just like, it's out there. You just got to go for it.
And that will be a dream come true for me, to pass that on to the next generation. So I know that I'll be leaving it in good and safe hands. Whatever legacy we've created, or that I've created as a player, I will leave it in good hands. And that's what I want to do.
Awesome. Well, you have a minute to do a quick rapid fire round?
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, I got a new set of questions. I came up with a new set of questions just for my return guest. You're the only my So I we'll see how these go. So
I'm ready.
All right, brother. Here we go. First question. What is the one thing that you have always wanted to do but haven't?
Ooh, tour with Elton John.
Oh, okay. If you could master any instrument besides the trumpet, what would it be?
Bass trombone.
All right. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you want to be?
Ooh, you know what? That would be a great question for my wife. And wherever she goes, that's where I want to be.
All right. In Mexico with the whales.
That's right.
What's your favorite dessert?
Oh man, Beth and I go once a week to Sweet Ciesi's for frozen yogurt.
Okay.
Again, the company is as good as the dessert.
All right. What's your superpower?
Oh, my superpower is the power of positivity.
Okay. What's your kryptonite?
Oh, wow. Golly. Oh, just the opposite, man. You know, the thing that brings me down the hardest is negativity. It makes me fearful, and that's not a place I want to live or come from. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
And I've been doing a lot of reading about this. I think I appear to be an extrovert, but I think what I am is like a kind of an introvert that is able to tolerate social situations in a competent way. I think.
Yeah, that's me. That's me. I am an introvert by nature who had to learn to be an extrovert because of what I've chosen as career path. So
Yeah.
no choice. right, who's your favorite vocalist?
Oh wow. Man, that is a long, long list. My favorite vocalist, Al Jarreau.
Okay. Um, what is your vision of the perfect gig?
Oh my gosh. Well, anytime you have the three elements, they say, you want two of them. So it's people, music, and money. When you can combine the three of those and you're getting joy from all three of those things, that's the perfect gig.
Okay. What's your vision of the perfect life?
Perfect life, man, it's real close right now. There's only one thing that I would change about my entire existence right now, and I know you know what it is.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I would change about my existence. And even with all my cricks and cracks and my bad knee and my bursitis and whatnot, yeah, man, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a thing because if I didn't go through what I went through, I would not be here. And right now, here is a pretty damn good place to be.
Love it. What's the one question you wish you never had to answer again?
What mouthpiece are you using?
All right. And what is the one question you would love to answer, but nobody ever asks?
Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, that's such a great question, man. Um, you know, where does it come from? Where does your where does the music come from? Where does your energy come from? Where does all that stuff come from? And that's a long answer too, man. Golly, you better have some time if you're gonna ask that one.
Well, maybe we have to get you back for a third visit here soon. All right. And we'll wrap it up with this two-parter. If there was one thing that you could change about the world of music, what would it be?
Um, Gosh, I really think that it's pretty topical for me. I've seen a lot of people be taken advantage of financially by other people and companies. And I wish that the contribution that you make to music would be commiserately rewarded on every level. If you make a great contribution, and it's completely subjective, you know what I mean? If you make a great contribution to music, then you should be compensated in your soul and in your wallet and in your life. And if you make, and if yours is smaller or larger, I just want to see it be more fair. There's too many people that are making a lot of money that could be spread around a little more equally. I sound like I should be living in Russia or Cuba. But with regard to music, I think that would be really cool if everybody could be compensated for what they were. And if there was some sort of bar, remember I was talking about the person that you trust to be able to say, Jose, you've got talent, man, and if you do this, 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 and this, in my opinion, here's where you're going to be in 10 years, or here's where you're going to be next week, or whatever the deal is. Um, it's like a good trumpet teacher. They don't teach you the stuff you're good at already. They teach you the stuff that you suck at, right? And they make that better. So yeah, but there's a lot of people that don't measure up in the way that they're being receiving remuneration.
Yeah.
I don't know. That sounds terrible, but
Yeah.
that's true.
No, that's the truth. All right. Final question. What is the one thing that you would change about the world?
Oh man, golly, that's enormous. I'd really want to. I would want to get to the bottom of all of the issues that create conflict in the world. I mean, like Judgment Day, if you believe in that. If you believe in Judgment Day, everybody's going to be standing in the biggest room you've ever been in your life in front of God. And God is going to say, here's the deal, guys, you know? And you're going to be like, oh, okay, now I understand. I want to be standing in that room, and I want somebody who's so smart and so convincing and so correct to stand in front of us and say, this is the truth about climate change. This is the truth about guns. This is the truth about world hunger. This is and then take away the stuff that creates conflict, and we could live in peace. I mean, that's golly, I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's what I would want to happen, man, to get to the bottom of it all.
Yeah. Well, like you were saying earlier, just where does it all come from? And if we could answer that question, I think life would be a lot easier. A heck of a lot.
Put it in a bottle and sell it. Distill it down, put it in a bottle, and just give everybody a bottle, real cheap. That'd be good. And everybody
just don't let the pharmaceutical companies get a hold of it.
That's the truth, man.
It is. Well, Vinnie, my friend, it is always a pleasure talking with you. And I am just so excited that this project is, taken off. And, for anybody who wants to pre-order, please check out the link in the show notes. If you're watching this well after the pre-order date, just order it anyway. I don't care. I don't care if you're listening to this in August of 2027. Still go out and buy this.
We're only talking about $2 here, folks. Come on now.
Exactly.
Hey, man, I love you. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I appreciate your time, and I enjoy our time together so much. We got to hang and do some damage to some trumpet music and possibly a bottle of fine liquor.
A bottle of fine Kentucky bourbon would be well appreciated, unless our good friend Mike Barkley is in town, in which case it will have to be Irish whiskey. So
either one is fine with me. Either one is fine.
As long as there's some ribs and brisket involved, I'm down.
You better believe it, brother. You better believe it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of The Hang, and make sure you like and subscribe, share this with your friends, and make sure you follow Vinnie and the Hitmen. You're going to just be blown away by what these guys are capable of, because they're all great individual musicians, but bring them together and it's synergy defined right there. So thank you, my brother, and we'll catch you next time. Peace and slide grease. Thanks for hanging with us today. This podcast is all about creating deeper connections through our mutual love of music and the trumpet life. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and also like and share this episode with a friend. We want to see The Hang grow for show. Please support our sponsors and consider becoming a personal supporter of this podcast as well. Remember, for less than the price of a bottle of valve oil a month, you can keep this podcast moving smoothly. The Trumpet Guru's Hang is recorded at the Candy Factory, a co-working space and social club located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Jose Johnson is the executive producer. Post-production editing is by Mitch Bowers. Our opening theme song was composed and performed by Lexi Signor, and our closing theme music comes courtesy of The Greatest Funeral Ever. Incidental music is by Ethan Swayze and Jose Johnson. Graphic design by Ann Kirby of the Sweet Corps. The Trumpet Guru's Hang podcast is produced in collaboration with the So Good Lancaster Media Group.